Very good evening to you. My name is Zan. This is The Business on 103.9 Voice FM. And is transgender an issue, or are we making it one? What is wrong with being happy in a new gender? More people are beginning to express their true feelings, and with this comes a new reality that businesses, colleagues and family will have to accept. Here to discuss this and how it affected her career is Joanne Lockwood from See Change Happened. Joe, a very good evening to you. How are you?
Hi, Zan. Good evening. Yes, really good. Thank you.
Excellent. And did you? Obviously, I enjoyed seeing the rainbow earlier. Are you a rainbow kind of person?
Oh, obviously the rainbow represents pride. It's the full spectrum of colours. It's very relevant, and there's a pot of gold at the end. So what's not to like?
No, exactly. And the showers. I mean, I got caught in a shower on the way here. Did you manage to avoid them?
Almost. I mean, it's a bit wet in the car, and we managed to park up. And yeah, the quick walk up the road, it was a little bit wet, but we were okay. It wasn't too bad.
Okay, so you're here for. I mean, I met you, I think, at a networking event about 2 weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
And I know the transgender. I'm calling it an issue. I don't know if transgender is an issue, but that's what I'm calling it. And I know it's becoming a wider subject within business. When you were in business, was this a feeling that you had building up inside you?
Yes, most definitely. It's something that's been inside of me for distant memories. I can go back to my early school days, 5 or 6, and I kind of always knew there's something there. And over time, the feeling has just grown inside me. Yeah, so certainly for the last 5 to 10 years, the feeling has grown bigger and stronger.
Difficult question, this. Okay, but it was okay. But who did you tell first?
In the early days, it's very difficult because pre-internet, you feel very isolated. You're the only one. I had no way of expressing myself externally to people or share that information. And there's very much a feeling of you don't want to be humiliated or come out or tell anybody, because what will people think? It's a subject that pre-internet is very undisclosed, potentially furtive or fetish based, and it's something that many trans people feel that they can't tell people. So probably the first person I told was my wife Marie, and probably that was 5-6 years ago, and it wasn't an easy conversation.
I'm not surprised. How did you broach the subject then?
We were kind of having a chat one day and about various things in life, the universe and everything, and it kind of sounded right at the time. It was just, I don't know, there comes a time in life where you just have to say something, and it had been eating up inside me. It was something that was on my mind, and I just felt that I had to express it.
A weight off your shoulders?
Yes, it was. I mean, it was we had to talk about it for a fair while afterwards, and it was a conversation that probably occupied our thoughts for many years, and still does. But yeah, it was a kind of a weight, and it allowed me to take my first step, because I think you have to be honest with those who are nearest and dearest to you before you can be honest with the world, and I think it was a very important step in my journey.
I can imagine it takes one weight off, but it adds not only another weight potentially to yourself, but also to those close around you.
It does. It's one of the things that I really didn't appreciate early on. I thought it was a very selfish thing. It's all about me. I've got to transition. I've got to come out and look at me. I'm going to be myself. And then suddenly you realise that the people around you have to go through their own journey, their own transition. They have to see me effectively die as a person and discover the new me. And I found that very strange, because to me the world looks the same. Everybody I see looks the same as they used to. But it took a while for me to realise that people saw me differently. I act differently, I speak differently, I sit differently, I'm interested in different things. Even though to me I still think I sound and look the same, but to other people I don't.
That's very interesting. And was this something that you were comfortable at home, but then one day you must have had to go outside and
I think
be Joe?
Yeah, I think in the early days, we're all teenagers. We all have to find our identity, practice our makeup, work out what outfits work. We're part of a selfie-obsessed culture, so we tend to sort of take lots of photographs of ourselves and want reassurance that we look okay or great. So yeah, you do that, and then it ceases to become fulfilling. We're human beings. We want to interact with the world. We want to express ourselves. So in the early days, there was much of nervousness about stepping outside the front door, going for a quick walk in the dark, see how far you can go, maybe go for a drive. It was very scary because you're really paranoid about being caught, being identified. All that potential humiliation is building up inside you, the anxiety. And over time, I guess the more you do it, the more you express yourself like that, the anxiety levels drop, and eventually you get confident where you see somebody, you don't run away. You have the confidence to walk past them. And as your confidence develop, you become more comfortable with that. And eventually you get the courage to maybe go to a club or go to a pub or go to a venue that is, trans friendly. And I appreciate trans friendly isn't necessarily the place you need to go. Most places are accepting these days, but in the early days, you want some reassurance that you're not going to get laughed at or drummed out or made fun of. So somewhere trans friendly is important. And I remember my first night out was probably only, I think it was, from my memory, it's May 2014, so it was that 3 and a bit years ago. And Marie loved me so much, she drove me to the venue, made sure I was okay, said, see you later, left me to it, and I got a cab home. And that was my first night out in Portsmouth. I probably met the first trans people I'd ever met. First time I bought a drink at a bar, and it was just a completely, I don't know, it was from the most nerve-wracking to the most natural experience of my life.
I was going to ask you how it felt, but because okay, if it was me and I'd be walking, I would feel obviously very self-conscious, but I'd be looking at people's faces to see how they reacted, and I would notice that. But would I be wrong? But most people just sort of seem to ignore you in that respect.
I think as my confidence grew and my appearance, I lost a lot of weight. I had laser hair removal on my face. I bought a more stylish wig. I became more accustomed to dressing sort of more everyday, more naturally. So I think as I improved my own look, I felt more confident, and I think confidence goes a long way, because it's not just about appearance; it's about how you carry yourself and how you engage with the world. I think if you're confident, engaging and smiling at people will engage and smile at you back. But yeah, you are very conscious about what people's reactions are, and you become hypersensitive in the early days where you can hear people laughing, and is that about me, or am I getting a glance, or are they glancing at me because I'm a 6 foot tall blonde woman, or am I getting glances because they think I'm trans, or are they worried, or are they just looking this way anyway? But you become very hypersensitive, and I kind of developed a technique where I would try and focus either at someone's forehead or focus behind them. So as you're walking down the street, you don't really see the faces, you don't really take much attention, and that kind of helps. It helped me in the early days, and now I've been out enjoying my life for a couple of years now, and I don't get fazed anymore. In fact, I welcome the opportunity to meet people and talk to people and engage with them if they're interested.
We're going to talk a little later on about businesses and what businesses can do to help people going through the same change that you went through. But were you able to beat Joe at work?
I used to run an IT company with a couple of directors and partners, and for me at the time, I wasn't in a good place in my head to do that. I went through a lot of, I wouldn't quite go as far as say depression, but I went through a lot of days where it was very dark and very complicated in my head, and I just had this major anxiety about coming out at work, coming out with my co-directors, my business partners, my customers and my suppliers, and it just seemed there was too many people to cope with and to deal with that with, and to have that sort of worrying about how people were going to look at me or think about me. At the time, it was just too difficult. I just couldn't do that.
So there was never an occasion when you actually went in?
No, not to work, no. In fact, the way it turned out was I ended up selling my business to my business partners, and I took that opportunity as a time to sort of catalyse the change and say, well, that's the old me now. Let's start a new life as the new me. So I decided that for me that worked, and that was the easiest thing I could do in my head.
That's quite a break, though, isn't it? Because I mean, to build up a business and then to sell it because you really want to change yourself.
It wasn't just about transitioning. I think I'd been running the business for about 20 years. I think I was past my sell-by date. I'd been doing IT for that long. It got to a point where I'd lost the passion and it wasn't engaging me. And I felt I had a new passion. And I felt for a long time that I wanted to stand up for other transgender individuals. And if I could help anybody or one person not go through what I went through, and I thought that would be a great thing to do. And I've got that passion inside me. Sort of social enterprise, sort of the way I want to tackle things and make sure that I work with people and to make their lives easier in that way.
Well, hopefully we can talk about your business life a little later on as well, because obviously that's what the show is about. Yeah. But I mean, IT, I still find that interesting.
I love using my laptop still, but I just don't want to support other people's. I guess that's where it comes down to. It's nice not to have their troubles on my shoulders and have different issues to solve.
Well, I can understand that. I sort of raised the issue earlier on that business, in some respects, is one problem after another. But when you're in IT support, it's everyone else's problems, one after the other.
No one ever phones you up and says, my PC is working fantastically today. I really want to thank you for that. When you ever get involved with bad news, okay, sometimes there's nice big projects and you can get involved with having someone move office and they're really grateful. But day to day, it can be quite soul destroying, just dealing with problems and dealing with people who are stressed. And sometimes it's nice to put that behind you, I think. And after 20 odd years, I feel quite a weight off my shoulders of not taking responsibility for that.
Yeah, I still want to talk about it though.
Yeah, I'll go for it. Yeah. I see you've got a PC on your desk, and we can have a look at that if the upgrades aren't working properly on it if you want.
Oh, I would. No, please, we're not touching anything. No. As long as if I'm not responsible for, I'm not responsible for these things, and if I am responsible for something not working, then that would be a disaster. As far as I'm concerned,
and I don't want to take responsibility for it.
No, but I mean, if I had known, I would have brought a laptop in, because there's laptops themselves very irritating at the moment. They just seem to be going slower and slower.
There's always an update, isn't there?
It seems to be. I keep on looking at the task manager to see what's going on. And today was Windows was updating in the background. I was thinking, are you the culprit, young man?
Yeah, probably.
But what was most? I mean, when you look back at those 20 years, is it passwords that most people have a problem with, or is it other items?
I think, like anything, IT has evolved over many years. And the old days, there was all this advice about having very long, complex passwords. Then it was getting down to passwords that were phrases that joined together. And now it's all about fingerprint, face recognition, unique PIN numbers on. So yeah, it evolves. But yeah, there is a good chunk of PC support and IT support that's based around passwords. But a lot of it is about data recovery. You've got the issue with cybercrime these days and cryptolocker type of things, and that's probably more damaging to businesses. So yeah, it's something that is a problem still, and businesses need to be aware of it. But yeah, I'm not here to talk about IT specifically.
No, you are now. No, I've got one last question, one last IT question, because being a company, IT support company. Yeah. You would probably say it's better to have an external support than have someone internal.
Yeah, the company that I was a part of and still respect and value their support. We provided the outsourced IT, and it's horses for courses. A lot of small businesses maybe cannot afford them, but larger businesses can, and it's just cost benefit whether you want internal or external. Often it can be cost effective to complement your internal resource with external help and support. Using a best of breed IT company can save you costs and money in the long run. You're not constantly training up your internal staff, and you've got someone to rely on when someone's on holiday. You want cover, and some of the remote support and monitoring you can get for 24/7 support these days is fantastic. Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about your new company after the first piece of music. The new company is called See Change Happen. And we are going to play your first track, which is Taylor Swift. Now, tell us a little bit about this. Why are we playing this?
Taylor Swift. Yeah, this is the song is 22. It's kind of how I feel inside after years and years and years of holding myself back. This song encompasses everything about the freedom I feel now, the freedom to be able to express myself, how happy it makes me feel. And it's just a wonderful song that takes me back to wishing I was 22 again instead of 52.
That's Taylor Swift, a track called 22, the first song from our guest, Jo Lockwood, who runs the business See Change Happen. Got a quick message here from Paula Collins. Jo, you're doing a great job. Thank you to Sparkle. And also like to mention the Little Mermaids. Little Mermaids are...
Well, Mermaids are a trans youth charity run by Susie Green. They do fantastic work helping young children, young people through their difficult times, work with parents and give lots of counselling and support. So, yeah, Susie Green and what she does is amazing.
Well, we all are very interested in you and what you're doing, but we all love pigeonholes and labels. And am I allowed to call Jo Lockwood a woman?
Personally, I don't identify as a woman. I identify as transgender, female or trans woman. So I'm proud that I'm trans, and that's who I am. But it's very important that you can't stereotype or label everybody. Everyone has their own identity, and it's up to them to say how they feel and who they are. And they will explain their identity to you if you ask, or if you listen to what the words they use. So me, I'm a trans woman, transgender woman.
Okay. This just popped into my head. Your passport, what does that say?
Currently,
yes.
My passport looks like a Eastern European refugee.
Okay.
I haven't changed it yet. My driving licence looks pretty much like you see me today.
Okay. Which is, we'll describe, you've got a bob blonde wig. With side parting, you've got glasses on.
Yeah.
And I can't. You got a necklace with some beads.
Necklace and beads. Yeah. If you check out the website and the Twitter feed, you'll see a picture of me on there with you earlier, wouldn't you? So
yes. No, I haven't actually seen that yet, but
it's on Facebook.
It's on Facebook.
I'll tweet
right.
it later.
You see, I'm a bit more of a Twitter man. You see.
Yeah.
I do mention Facebook a lot on here, and actually keep forgetting to log in. But you get that horrible thing that if I forget and leave, people are going to put crazy comments on my Facebook page. Yes, they will. They'll be very irritating. The really, really, really interesting thing, and this is going to be a lot of business people are going to be very interested in this, is that you were president of the Round Table.
I was, yes.
But you were president of the Round Table as your previous incarnation.
My previous incarnation,
yes. So. And then you transgendered and
transitioned.
Transitioned.
I prefer rebrand.
Rebirth.
The story I like to use is you've heard of obviously Marathon and Snickers. Yeah. So originally I was Marathon.
Yes.
So through and through that lovely little chocolate bar. Then one day they decided to rebrand it. It became Snickers, and. So that's effectively what I've done. I was Marathon, now I'm Snickers. There are people that are die-hard Marathon fans, and they always remember marathons, and they're always going to call it Marathon. No matter what you do, they're always going to call it Marathon. But there are lots of people who only have ever known Snickers, and they're really comfortable calling it Snickers. And I've noticed there are people who are die-hard Marathon fans that have now started getting used to the Snickers. And as a good friend of mine said, that I'm still sweet on the inside, but still contain nuts. So that's kind of how Marathon and Snickers evolved, really.
That's brilliant. That answers another question. So what was it like then at the Round Table? Because that's a men-only club, isn't it?
It is a men-only club. It was founded in 1927 in Norwich, and Portsmouth was the second table ever, and Southampton's actually got the fourth table ever in the world. So it's a very old historic club. I was the second ever national president from Portsmouth. The first national president ever came from Portsmouth, and it is male. And I wholeheartedly believe there's a need for male-only spaces and female-only spaces, and I always protect the right of Round Table to be male-only. It does cause a bit of confusion because being a past national president, being a past president of the local table, area chairman, and did lots of things, it sort of confuses people when they invite all the other past people to the dinners, and what do they do with me? It's black tie. Am I going to turn up in a ball gown? Am I invited? How do they feel about that? And we're trying to work through that at the moment. It's a very complex thing. It was the National Association's 90th birthday party this year in March, and they held it at the Great Hall in Winchester, and then in the village hall afterwards, the Winchester Town Hall. And I was invited as myself. I was actively encouraged. If you want to come to this event as yourself, that's absolutely fine, and I did. I took part in the roll call of the past national presidents, waved to everybody, and I kind of felt, because my name is on all of the regalia, all the badges and pins and things, that I kind of thought, well, I don't want to deny who I was, because that's who I was at the time. It's historic. That's my name. So I didn't feel uncomfortable with that. I was in a room with 500 or 600 other round table men. The only female identifying person in the room for most of the time. And some people were a bit confused. I went around the room. I wasn't shy. I went, shook hands, said, hi, how you doing? And on the whole, okay, some people don't get it, but on the whole, people wanted to engage, they wanted to talk, they wanted to understand, and I was quite more than happy to do that. And it was a great day. It was a great day.
What did you wear?
I've got some brown sort of calf-length boots, grey tights, and it's actually a Primark dress. It was with a paisley pattern on it. I thought it looked all right. Yeah.
Excellent. Gloves? Did you wear gloves?
No, I didn't. No, it was a lounge suit, business casual event, so I didn't need to dress up too much.
Okay, so it was sort of ball gown type
No,
style?
It wasn't ball gown. No. In the evening, there was a rave at the club on Southampton Guildhall, isn't it? There's a club next door. I think they hired the Guildhall or something in Southampton, and they put a rave on. I just wore a sort of raving outfit, really, just sort of parting the night away. There's some two heavy DJs there, scratching some tracks or whatever they do these days, and flashing lights everywhere. So I was a bit old for it, to be honest. There's a
question I asked you when we first met, and I can see it in your eyes. You're happier now, aren't you? You're having more fun.
I glow.
As Joe,
this
aren't
is
you?
me. I feel like I've just found myself. It's that moment in the Matrix where Neo's been shot and he's lying there dead, and suddenly he wakes up. And when he's in the Matrix, you can just see the world clearly, and there's clarity, and everything is just more obvious, more enjoyable. I have less hang-ups about the world. I'm more engaging with people. Yeah,
that's great. And so obviously a big bonus and benefit for yourself, and then you're trying with See Change Happen to help other people feel exactly the same, aren't you? Yeah,
to support them. Yeah, it's not necessarily about trying to coach them or the people in general about transitioning. It's about making sure that when they are ready, they know there's support there, and they know that the business is ready for them. Because it's not fair to ask an individual to train their own business. I mean, the business should take responsibility for itself to make sure it's ready to handle or whoever they employ, to make sure that they are inclusive and they have policies and processes. And it's not just about transgender individuals, it's about whoever they wish to employ have to be treated fairly, so that they can get the best out of them. But it isn't fair to say to a trans person, well, you have to tell the business what they should do. The business really needs to put that in place and have their policies robustly checked to make sure that they consider it's the pre-transition phase. Understand that person may be going through a lot of stress, they may have some family issues as well, lots of anxiety, and it's going to cause their performance to suffer. So once this person is able to be themselves and express themselves, the business can then have a more effective employee. They'll be more loyal, in my opinion. But it doesn't stop the day this person transitions, and the business needs to support people throughout this process, because it's not suddenly we help you and then tomorrow we're not, you're okay, because there's a lot of anxiety day one, day two. Different people join the company, people leave the company, and it's a constant process, and it could take many years for trans people to become fully comfortable in their skin in all environments. And some people will always struggle, some people will get over it very quickly. But the important thing is it's not just a tick box exercise, and it's not just about toilets, it's not just about things, and it's about trans men, trans women, non-binary, gender fluid, gender questioning, and there's a whole spectrum of different individuals that can't be labelled as a whole, and they all need to be treated individually and their own needs assessed. And what we don't want to do is say, well, this is just a blanket policy, it'll work. It's actually engaging really, really constructively with each individual and working out a plan for what works for them.
So you're not quite a negotiator. You said you weren't a coach, but you're not quite a negotiator then. But are you a middle person?
Well, I see my role as working with the business to help them put the policies in place ahead of where someone actually needs to use them. If they come to me at a point where they've got a need, where someone has identified and said, look, I want to be able to transition at work, or I want to come out, then maybe I can get involved at that point there and maybe talk to the person, maybe help them, maybe put them in contact with some qualified coaches who work specifically with transgender people, or just be a friend to them and talk to them and give them some of my strength. But yeah, primarily I want to work with the business to make sure they're ready, and it's not about life coaching or motivational coaching or that level. But obviously, having been through a lot of this myself, I've got my journey. But again, everybody's journey is different, and I wouldn't want to imprint what worked for me on somebody else. But it is a case of listening and understanding, and maybe they do just need a friend.
Do work colleagues then need to be briefed before? I mean, to me, it seems like this is something either you dip your toe in and change a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and then suddenly you go for it, or do you just go for it and then see how people react?
Everyone's different. That's the key thing, and it is essential that a company tackles this holistically right from the top through HR to the managers, supervisors, co-workers. Everybody needs to be involved. And then it's not just internal employees. You've got to think about customers, suppliers, coming and going into the building, etc., etc. So it is a holistic, it's not an issue, it's a holistic consideration where you need to engage with the person, understand what their anxiety is. They may be comfortable telling everybody in month one. Everyone gets the idea, everyone gets familiar. They maybe show up to a social event, or they may be comfortable meeting certain colleagues to become comfortable with themselves. Or some individuals may wish to just say, right, Monday morning, I'd like to come in as me. It really does, there is no one size fits all. It really is understanding that person and being there to support them to make sure that experience is very positive for everybody.
Is it best to brief everyone beforehand?
Oh, most certainly. But what I would suggest is having a transitional plan. So document it, sit down with HR, work out a timeline, work out what works for the person involved, what works out for the person's family, work out what ID needs changing, if anything, whether, if you've got email systems, business cards, signs on your desk, all that stuff needs to be planned and scheduled so that the person, when they return as their identity, is all ready for them. They don't have to go around saying, is my old photo still on the intranet? Because the last thing you want is employees in the future digging up an old photograph and going and drawing comparisons or conclusions. So it is important that the individual is respected and that anything like that is dealt with correctly and their wishes respected. Some people are comfortable with their old identity being known. Some people aren't. Some people may want to do a change of name deed, change their passport, change their driving license. Some people may not. Some people who have DV clearance or SC clearance or DBS checked may also need to go through extra processes to get their ID, to get them recertified with passports, driving license, utility bills. And that takes time. It took me 4 weeks to get my driving license back. I'm sure when I send my passport off in a couple of weeks, that will take a bit longer. Then it could take a few months to get a utility bill to produce with my new name, etc. So all of this process needs a plan, needs a timeline. And as I say, it's all about engagement with the individual and tailor it to them and the business so that it all works for everybody. And then everybody is clear and everything becomes positive.
Because I mean, it's interesting from the work perspective, and it's just been wandering across my mind that it's almost as if it's like an employee leaves a job, and then on Friday was Bert, and then on Monday comes in as Belinda, and yeah. But you are presumably still you are still the same employee, aren't you? As you have all the rights to pensions and what have you had beforehand. Yes,
it's no different to anyone getting married and changing their name and coming back. That's all it is. You go away, get married, come back, you've got a different name. And then people would respect that name change on the systems and everything else. It's just in this case, that person's whole identity is changing, not just their name. But because in the most part, individuals have been living this in themselves for many years. They don't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to transition tomorrow. This will have been an identity that has evolved over many months, years, decades, potentially. They will have thought long and hard about this. This is probably the biggest decision that they've kept inside them ever, and it'll have enormous consequence in their personal life, their family, and in their work. So it is something that when they come into work that first day, there's going to be massive anxiety, and anything that can relieve that, and making sure that people are briefed. That this person doesn't want to have lots of complicated questions. They don't want to be the educating everybody around them with what language to use and correcting pronouns all the time. The business should have made sure there is this plan so people are briefed. And it's not just about e-learning, clicking a few boxes and passing a test saying, I'm now diverse and equality trained. It is real engagement and making sure that this is a personal experience, not just a tick box exercise.
It is. I mean, before the next piece of music, it is difficult. I mean, it was I found it very interesting that I met you on the Tuesday, and then the Wednesday I went to a meeting and met someone else who was going through the same gender change as yourself. Yeah. But because they had said, oh, she'll be here, she'll be here, she'll be here. Then you go there and it's like, oh, and I've still, even though I'm open-minded, I'm a man of the world and I've been around and done loads of things, it's still a strange situation to be in. And I still keep calling her him, which I find embarrassing, actually. And but do some people adapt to it really quickly, and other people take their time?
There's a lot of factors, and visual, audio, mannerisms. There's a whole load of subliminal things that go on when you meet people. You get to know someone in the first 10 seconds or something. You cast this judgment, and I found that from a distance, people. They maybe meet me, they shake my hand, I pass them in the street, they don't notice. But something can then just trigger something in their head. If I speak, my voice, as you can tell, is not particularly high-pitched. It's quite deep and resonant in my chest, which doesn't bother me. So something will trigger. I've been in a restaurant, I've been greeted by a waiter, sat at my table, madam, sit down, please. Madam would like a drink, etc., etc. And then I'd order my food, and I get, as they're finished walking over to, oh, thank you, sir. And it's like, you can almost hear the waiter going, no. I'm like, oh, no, what like thing. And you can see him sheeping off going, oh, no, I've really blown it. And then he comes back 5 minutes later and he's like, oh, madam this and madam that again. He's regaining his composure. So I think it does happen. I've got some very good friends who've known me before and they now know me now. And it's very difficult when you talk about history to talk about me with feminine pronouns in my history, because I wasn't using feminine pronouns back then. I've even misgendered myself. I was having a conversation about my family, my family, and I said I was the oldest of 3 brothers, and I went, oh, oldest of 3 children. So it can be very difficult for everybody to get it right first time. But the key thing is, don't make a big deal of it. Don't bring it into the open. Don't say, oh, I'm really sorry. Oh, I'm really sorry. Just say, if you say he, just say she, and then remember to use it in the future, but just don't make a big deal of it. And the last thing anybody wants is if it to be a major issue, because it's almost disrespectful that you're trying to put the problem back to somebody else. Oh, I'm really sorry. No, don't be sorry. Just move on. Just matter of fact, move on and get it right next time.
But for you, it must be very comforting when a waiter is going, sit here, madam, this is madam, this is madam.
It's validating.
Yes,
it's very validating.
You're part of the real world.
It's validating, and it's respectful. I mean, I was sat in the cinema a couple of months ago with my wife, and my wife was sitting on the aisle, and someone needed to pass us to get into the cinema, and he sort of tapped my wife on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, mate, can I get through?" And my wife looked up and went, "Mate." And that was my wife's probably first experience of being misgendered herself. And she found that quite sort of shocking how that felt and made her feel. So it's not just trans people that can get upset if they're misgendered. Other people get upset if they're misgendered. And if you're non-binary, gender fluid, or gender questioning, you can't just judge someone by how they look or how they sound. You have to understand them as a person before you worry about how they identify.
Another piece of music. Obviously, the conversation is swinging along. Normally, we ask the guest for 5 songs. We've only played 1 so far. Obviously, I find this fascinating listening to you and hearing the information that you're giving to us. So apologies for that. But Squeeze, Up the Junction is this. Is it the title of the song, or is there another reason for picking this?
This is a song that I was always... I loved it when I was younger. It's one of the ones that I learned to sing at karaoke in my previous life. And yeah, it's a sad story, and I feel quite sorry for the chap, but he kind of did it to himself in the end. And I think it's a lesson to us all that don't let ourselves lose the one we love because we don't look after them well enough.
The music of Squeeze, the song Up the Junction, as chosen by our guest, Joanne Lockwood. She is running a company called See Change Happen, and that is seechangehappen.co.uk if you want to find out more about that. And if you want to find out more about Joan, then joannelockwood.me is her personal website, as you've probably heard, on Facebook quite a lot, on Twitter as well, but more on Facebook, isn't it, Joe?
And LinkedIn, yeah, a bit of everything. I like to dabble in everywhere. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, if you want to track me down there. But yeah, mainly Facebook.
And as far as your business is concerned, See Change Happen, you're also doing seminars and workshops.
That's right. Yes.
I mean, one a month maybe at the moment. Is it? How's it going?
A couple so far. The business has only really been going for 2 or 3 months, so yeah, I'm just trying to get my name out. I'm looking for opportunities maybe to come along for breakfast briefings, lunch and learn. Any companies, such as HR companies or lawyers who want to hold an event, I'm willing to come along and talk at those events for them. And just create some general awareness. I think it's important for people to meet trans people, trans individuals, and just get to know us, who we are, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions. A lot of people assume various things about trans individuals, and I think it's important to be visible, to get out there and just address people and talk to them and engage and educate.
Because what I've been picking up from you over the last conversations we've had, it's more about gender than sex. Is that right?
Oh, completely. Sex and gender are 2 completely different entities. One is, how you feel in your head, how you identify, how you wish to express yourself, and sex are bits you're born with and how you want to reproduce. They're 2 completely different things, and there's every permutation of brain and sexual characteristics. Some people have this gender identity and that sexual preference, and you cannot assume either from one or the other.
That's it definitely is food for thought, and the questions that you've had so far from the workshops and the meetings, informed questions. Has everyone been fairly open, or has it been a bit tentative?
I think when you live in the trans community, it's very easy to become isolated in your own echo chamber, so you don't necessarily hear what everybody else is thinking, and you assume that everybody watches Transparent, the program on, is it Netflix or Amazon, or they watched Boy Meets Girl with Rebecca Root in it, or they've watched Hollyoaks and understood about Annie Wallace, and so you just kind of assume that people are a bit more aware. But I jumped in a cab in the centre of London having left the nightclub one night at 2 o'clock in the morning, and within 30 seconds of the cab starting, I said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" I thought, okay, I know what's coming. This is an opportunity to educate. And he said, "I've never met a girl like you before. Can I just ask you a few things?" And it was like, I thought, well, that summed up to me that as trans people, we think that people have heard of us and know what's going on. But if a cabbie in the centre of London hasn't met a trans person before, then that's pretty likely that a lot of people haven't. And I've been in a pub in middle of Hampshire in the daytime, and someone's come up to me and said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question, love?" I went, No, please do. So often people want to engage, they want to ask somebody, and they're not trying to be rude, they're not trying to be horrible or nasty to you, they just really want to try and understand what makes trans people tick, because they fundamentally don't get it themselves. As I often say, well, I don't get what it's like not to be trans. You know, how can you not want to be trans? I just can't figure it out. So I kind of get in the reverse. So they wouldn't understand who I am and why I feel this way. So I think it is important to meet people, engage with people, and educate and share and make it lighthearted and be open.
I'm sometimes thinking about life as being a jigsaw puzzle. I don't know if Forrest Gump did. He might have done.
Box of chocolates, I think.
I know it's a box, but sometimes this seems a natural one of those bits where the pieces now fit together.
For me, they do.
They do, yes.
Yeah, they do. They do fit. Yeah. Everybody says I smile more and look happier, and yeah, I feel that way. Yeah.
Right. So that's actually sidetracked me a little bit there, but I don't know where I'm going next. Actually, that's very rare for me. Very rare. It's
So have you never felt trans yourself? No?
Me?
You don't identify as trans at all? You don't want to talk about your gender identity?
No, I'm fairly. I always go back to that thing about Jerry Hall said about it doesn't take much to get an Englishman into a frock. I don't know why she said that, but she seemed to say that, and it's. I definitely, if I was. Think pantomime. You see pantomime. That's where you grow up. It's very interesting with pantomime because you get the principal boy is a girl and you get the dames are guys, and they're very funny and very entertaining on both sides. So I think with pantomime you half see that, and that half makes you used to it a little bit.
Well, that's kind of where some of the stigma and the problem we've got to try and overcome is, people find trans people to be a joke, a parody, or something for entertainment. They're used to seeing trans people as pantomime dames, drag king, queen, Paul O'Grady, Lily Savage type, and the Les Dawson characters, and that's kind of where we're at. We're seen as a bit of a joke. We're seen as we can't be serious, and we just want to dress up and prance around, and that's kind of where we're trying to get back from. You look back at the Bernard Manning era, some of those programs that were on in the 70s where there were racial connotations in those. And people at the time were saying, well, it's just a bit of fun. Well, it's not just a bit of fun. Your banter is harassment, bullying, and victimization of somebody with that characteristic. And if I've sat, before I was public, I sat around dinner tables with groups of men, and they laugh about going to Thailand. They laugh about websites that have those sort of Thai lady boys on them, and they're bantering about it, and they've got absolutely no idea who is in the room. You can't tell a trans person by looking at them. I existed for 30 or 40 years of my life knowing there's something different about me, but nobody could tell. When I came out and told everybody, they went, "You're kidding, I'd never have guessed that." And you can't. You don't know who's in the room. You don't know how they're identifying. And by parodying or laughing at a characteristic, whether it's trans or any other characteristic, you just can't tell. And more so, you can't tell who that person knows. If you meet my wife, you talk to her in day to day, you would have no idea that her husband was trans. And so anything you said to her that was not in supporting of trans people, she would take very personally, and she may not choose to express that concern to you, but she's still feeling it inside, and she would then respect you less as a person. She would then be quite hurt by that, because she loves me and she wouldn't want to see me hurt, but someone's being rude, nasty, judgmental, and just treating me badly. And I have hundreds of friends, and they will stand up and be my ally and defend me. But you can't tell. Everybody meets trans people all the time. You just don't know it because they don't show it.
But I haven't answered your question. I don't think I have.
No,
had any. I don't think. Looking back, I can't really say I have. I wore a wig once.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, that was an interesting experience, because it's a long story and I won't go into it too much, right? But I had a wig, and it's similar to the wig you're wearing now, but brown. Okay, but more of a distinct bob at the back.
Right.
At the time, I was in a rock band and had really long hair.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so therefore, but I wore that wig on a bus journey from Fulham to central London, and in a pub in central London. And the guy I met at the time, a group of people, and the guy was the singer in the band. He thought I had my hair cut, so he thought it was hysterical, and he just couldn't stop laughing. But what was so interesting about wearing the wig was that I was sitting there expecting everyone to be looking at me and pointing and laughing, like he was. But during that whole journey, I wasn't. No one noticed me one little bit. I suppose, but that's London for you in a way.
No, I don't think people appreciate how many people actually wear wigs, hair pieces, hair extensions. I was having a chat with a lady this afternoon who's of a black lady, and she wears a wig, and it's not uncommon for people with afro haircuts to have it cut short and wear wigs. And as she said, everyone thinks Beyonce's got real hair. Beyonce hasn't got real hair. So people wear wigs. And it's not just people who are trans, it's people who have other needs to wear wigs. So you can't judge somebody just because they're wearing a wig. I've had people come up to me and say, I didn't realise that was a wig, because I was joking about taking it off, giving it a shake, put it back on again. You're kidding, that's a wig? You're having a laugh. So people don't generally walk around going, oh, is that a wig? Is that a wig? Is that a wig? You just become hypersensitive when you're in that zone. It's like you buy a new Mini and every car's a Mini on the road, isn't it? Your brain locks onto the things that's familiar. So generally people don't go around looking for people wearing wigs.
Interesting. We've almost come to the end of the conversation, which is a great shame. It's gone very quickly, as always. That's one strange thing about guests on the show. It just, we sit here chatting and suddenly it's time for the next guest, Richard Hazelgrove. So is there anything, let's say within the last couple of minutes, you'd like to tell the listener about, or imagine this was like a mini workshop and you've got a chance to educate someone or speak to someone a little bit more about what you are, who you are, and where you're going?
Yeah, I think the important thing is, if you don't understand, if you're not sure, put some time in, investigate, have an open mind to learn about what makes transgender individuals tick. Don't polarize your opinion straight away with a negative. Don't hold on to old beliefs or how you feel inside. Just be honest with yourself for 5 minutes. Google, do some research. There's some very good websites out there. Transformation, Sparkle, my own charity, has got a lot of information. Mermaids have got information. But there are some very good websites out there that explain terminology, pronouns, protocols, questions you should ask, questions you shouldn't ask. Or better still, come to my website, seechangehappen.co.uk. Send me a message. Let me engage with you on Facebook or Twitter, and I can come and have a chat with you. But don't live in ignorance and assume that there's something strange. Just take it as an opportunity to educate yourself and find out more, because at the end of the day, as you found out, Zan, I'm just a human being. Yeah, I bleed, I smile, I breathe. I'm quite good fun, and I can be entertaining, I can be boring, I can watch telly, I can go to the pictures, I can go dancing. I'm just a human being, just like everybody else, and I'm not strange. I'm not weird.
Yeah. Well, Joanne Lockwood, you've been great company for this last hour. Thank you very much for coming in and telling us about your story and also your new business, which is See Change Happen, and you can find out more about that at seechangehappen.co.uk. And of course, if you're in HR or run a big HR company, maybe you should contact Joe, have a conversation, have a workshop, and we can start helping people not only be themselves, but also help people be themselves in our company. And I think we're going to end with a song. And I think it's going to be this song that you want to pick, but I don't know if you want to pick that song. Which of those two songs would you like to pick? Is it that one or that one? Okay, Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley,
All the
Suspicious Minds.
Yes.
A good friend of mine, Ian Cox, he was very inspirational when I started my first business, and this is the song we used to do karaoke together with. And more recently, another good friend of mine, a guy called John Kilshaw, this is the song we do as karaoke, me as Joe and him. We did this in the Tap and Spa Public House just off Broad Street in Birmingham, and that was one of my first real bar karaoke sessions, and it's got good memories for me, this one.